It's a very fine line, and it's one that is incredibly complex and incredibly difficult, because you start going, well, what's the difference between an orc and, let's say, someone of the Jewish faith?
He better have an answer for this.
What does gay pride have to do with role-playing? Well, in my case, everything. And here's why.
There's no element of your
Hello and welcome to this week's
role playing outside of gay pride.
Episode on how to be a...
In my case, everything. For 30 years, I've role played as a straight man. This is the video where my wife will learn the truth.
Great GM. My name is Guy, and in this episode, it's an incredibly personal episode for me, and it's one that I think, if you are one of the people out there who go, why do we need such a thing as gay pride, or gay pride doesn't have any place in role-playing, this video is for you. And if you are someone who was like me, then hopefully this video will help you.
What about the people who are like, hey, if that's the game you're doing, okay. If it's not, it's also fine.
To find happiness as I did. So it is a video based on my experiences and my opinions, and that's all there is to say about that. What am I talking about? Well, when you look at the idea of gay pride, it is the notion of celebrating that there are people out there who are different from everybody else, which is an absolutely admirable fact.
Do we need sexuality at the table? Is a very different question to... I feel like the gay pride part would only be relevant if you included sexuality to begin with. But then there's a step further, which is, do we need sexuality at the table? I'd say no, especially if you're playing with randoms, because things get bad real fast a lot of the time.
Whether it's gay pride or people who are green pride or people who have wings and speak like pony pride, it doesn't matter in my opinion. The idea is about accepting others regardless of who or what they are.
I don't think liking My Little Pony is what you are or who you are. I'm sorry, bro. No, I don't think liking a product is part of your identity. I'm sorry.
And that, for me, is the fundamental message that I really want to send through in this particular video. But what does this have to do with gay pride? Well, when I was growing up as a young gay man, I grew up in a country where electroconversion therapy was still a thing. They literally would attach electrodes to various body parts of homosexuals and
I mean, some groups still do that.
Into trying to be averse towards liking people of the same gender. They did this until the very late 1980s, which I know for a lot of you is earlier than you were born, but for many of you, you were around back then. So I grew up in a particularly hostile environment towards my sexuality, which I didn't even understand was a thing until I was in high school, where I was then severely bullied, not for being openly gay. I hid myself behind many layers of hatred and anger and shame and self-doubt. I hid behind all of that and avoided trying to be sexual in any shape or form, because of the stigma that went.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay, I agree. That's not good. Now what?
With it. But then I moved from the town that I grew up in, and I moved to a coastal town where there were lots of surfers and life was a little bit more relaxed, and I attended university. And it was there that I started to realize that either I have to accept who I am, or I'm going to continue to be a frustrated, angry person. And I couldn't necessarily accept who I was in public because there was still a massive stigma around that entire thing. Now, by this stage, South Africa, the country that I grew up in, had gone through a major political upheaval and was trying to become an incredibly inclusive and representative country. So there was a major shift from a political perspective, anyway, on paper, of the attitude towards homosexuality, which, although it was encouraging, there were still reports of people being killed for their sexuality in very horrific ways as well, I might add. But there was one space that I could possibly express who I truly was in, and that was in role-playing. So I will never forget when I was in my first year of university.
I have a strong feeling we're going to run into something that doesn't make fucking sense. My this doesn't make sense alarm is going off.
At the tender age of 19 or 20, somewhere around there. Maybe it was my second year. I forget now. It was so long ago. There was a role-playing group that wanted me to join their sessions through.
Bro, I had to hide my sexuality from these people, but if I just role-played in the game as Cock Gobblerus, the cock gobbling goblin, they had no idea, dude, and I could express myself through that.
A mutual friend. And I was emphatic, and I don't remember exactly why I was so emphatic at that stage, but I was emphatic that they had to know that I was a gay man. And they had to accept that before I would join their...
I get why he'd feel very bad and be very uncomfortable and have had a horrible early adolescence, I guess, and all that, and it's going to have a lot of baggage. There are 13 minutes left. Maybe he'll change my mind, but I don't think he's going to make an argument that's going to change my mind.
Now, why was I being so demanding? Why was I forcing this upon these poor people? What evil agenda did I have? I didn't have any evil agenda. I wasn't trying to force anything on anyone. I just wanted to be able to have one space in my world, my real world, where I could just be me. And I didn't have to pretend to be someone else. I didn't have to have false girlfriends or things like that. This is not a sob story, by the way. This is...
Does he mean pretend to have a girlfriend, or does he view the women he dated as false girlfriends? Like, just, that's sus. That's weird. I get that it would be called a false girlfriend, but it's a bit objective. For a video that's meant to be about empathy and treating people carefully or whatever, I don't know. If he's referring to a real person he used as cover, I don't know. It's a little bit dehumanizing. If he means a pretend girlfriend or whatever.
Because those players went, we don't care what the hell you are. Come and play with us. If you're a good player, you get to stay. If you're a bad player, go away. And I role-played with them for the next 12 years until I moved to an even bigger city elsewhere on the planet. That was an incredibly empowering space.
I don't think the role-playing games matter. You found a group of friends who accept you. I don't think that necessarily has any impact. If your friends know what you've gone through and care about you and understand that you value doing whatever in role-playing, that's between you and them. I don't think that means anything to broader practice in role-playing, especially because it is going to be between a small group of people if it's a tabletop thing.
Ironically, or perhaps...
It doesn't imply a rule or something. The thing that matters is those people, not the game.
Because I wasn't under any pressure then to be something that I wasn't, I don't think I ever actually played a gay character. I don't recall particularly playing a straight character either, simply because romance wasn't what our GM liked to include. And after a few months of role-playing, I became the default GM, and so then I played everything. And then I could include gay characters and straight characters and everything in between that I just needed as an NPC in my game. But it gave me...
I became the GM and I gayed everything. Dicks everywhere.
A space to just sort of be me and explore myself and be comfortable knowing that here are people who don't care and who accept me for who I am. And so I always tried to make sure that my table was then never telling someone to not be who they fundamentally believed themselves to be. Fast forward to a few years ago now, 10 years ago.
If you don't like someone, kick them out of your group. If you don't like the group, leave. This is weird shit. This is DnD as viewpoint correction therapy, re-education. Don't. You know what you do if you get a player at a table who's like, you're gay and they hate gay people, or you have another gay person and they hate gay people? You get rid of them.
Oh. And I had a GM who was trying to run a game, and I had a friend of mine, not a close friend, but a friend nonetheless, who wanted to play an anthropomorphic embodiment of basically a furry. A rather interesting character build in terms of that whole thing. But the GM at the table went, no, I don't allow that sort of thing at my table. Keep that away. You are not welcome at the table anymore. Needless to say, that GM did not GM for me ever again. Why would that sort of restrict?
No, bro, you have to be really this. If he doesn't cover this, I'm going to be like, bro, how much time have you spent playing with people, really? Are you a fraud? With furries, you give an inch and they take a fucking mile. Also, there's a difference between maybe inserting your sexuality as part of a character and inserting actual fetish material into someone's game. You could make the argument that that's non-consensual involvement in their fetish, for example. That's... I would say, even with this, that's way fucking different. Talking about people being okay with being gay or gay characters. That's super fucking different. If he doesn't cover the fetish angle, like, I was playing with a group, and then one character, they wanted to have an incontinent wolf who has to wear a diaper, and he has to roll a d20 every time he gets hit to see if he shits himself. And if he doesn't have another diaper to replace it with, it will slowly fill up and he'll lose movement speed. See, it's just who he is. You have to accept that. I don't think that would make it, and I think he's going to leave that shit out. But that shit, if you're playing online, you're going to run into that shit.
Be imposed? Why is there that fear that, no, you can't play this, you can't play a catfolk or a this or a that, that's weird, that's sexually deviant, and I won't have it at my table? I can only assume it is because of an intolerance or a fear that it may influence the person who is against it. It could also simply...
No. Have you seen a discussion forum or Discord channel that allows porn? Surprise, boom, it's the porn channel. You let furry shit go, boom, it's the furry game. You can't do it, bro, unless you want that.
Be a complete misunderstanding. Why would you want to play a toaster? What possible enjoyment would you get out of playing a toaster? Well, I identify with toasters and I want to be a toaster. That is, as far as I can say, not the ridiculousness of being a furry, but the ridiculousness of preventing someone from playing at your table in a make-believe imaginary world simply because you don't understand what it means to them.
I have a feeling he's making an exception. He's making a special exception for if it's part of what someone identifies as or whatever, because of course you're going to have restrictions on what's in your game. What if it's a stylistic clash? What if you're playing a specifically like low magic world, like there aren't automatons and stuff, and they're like, I want to be like a rune forged, battle forged with magic glowing lines, and I can shoot magic out of my asshole. You'd be like, no, it doesn't fit the world. Or whatever. Or you might limit races and just go, this is a super mundane world and the most exotic thing we've got is like dwarfs. I don't think that has to be bigotry.
So that was a very powerful lesson for me in terms of, no, if you want to come to the table and play this particular type of character, I want to support you and understand why that makes you happy. Because if I'm your friend and that makes you happy, shouldn't I be doing everything in my power to make sure that you remain happy? Well, there are, of course, certain limits.
But then that comes down to just your interpersonal relationships. That's friends you already have. If we're not talking about people who are just meeting and getting together to do this, who aren't already familiar with each other, I don't think you'd run into this situation to begin with. Like if you were building it from the ground up, to have it be something your group of friends you already have would want, you'd sort of know what to expect from them and blah, 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 because you already know them and whatnot. But the being surprised by their choice or the choice not fitting and blah, 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 Or he described a scenario where the person wanted to be a furry, and then he never played with that GM ever again because of the GM saying no to the furry. Was that a friend group that already existed? That doesn't sound like it. That doesn't sound like a group of friends who are invested in making each other happy. Surely that's a group of people who've come together for the game. I think this is an etiquette problem. You can't just be like, I'm gay, no etiquette. I don't think it is a special enough case to cut past the expectations playing with strangers.
Now, I will always draw the limit at as long as it doesn't affect any other sentient living being. So animals, or if you are deciding that people should be executed because of the way they look or the way they talk or the way they think, then you are not welcome at my table. So there are lines. And I guess I have to look at it and say, well, is that the same line as saying, well, I don't want gay characters?
That's very... Dude, he's moving lines around a lot. There is a difference between saying, this is never okay in a game of D&D and this doesn't fit in my game of D&D. Or not even always. It might be like, this time, I don't think that fits in this world. Maybe a few months down the line, if that campaign dies out, maybe they'll do another one where, hey, wolf dude, what's the name of is it Worgen? I want to say Worgen, but I'm pretty sure that's fucking World of Warcraft or some shit. What are the wolf people? What are the playable wolves in canon D&D? What are they called?
At my table, or gay people at my table. And I feel that the primary differentiator, and this I think is something that I feel very personal about, is that if you sit at my table and you want to play someone who hates orcs, but at the same time, you are not telling any other character to hate orcs or any other players to hate orcs, where is the harm in saying, well, you can sit at my table and hate orcs? It's a very...
Wait, what if they don't hate orcs? What if the player doesn't hate orcs? And it's not a, yeah, I hate orcs, wink, wink. What if they're playing a character who is just bigoted against orcs? And I don't get the harm in their character saying it to other people, or like, bro, he's an orc, or something like that. That could be, I think that could be really good as a way to have intra-party conflict without it turning into PvP, for example.
Fine line, and it's one that is incredibly complex and incredibly difficult, because you start going, well, what's the difference between...
Here's another thing where what if you're playing with people you know well, people who you know are not hateful people or whatever, and you know they're just exploring it within the context of the fantasy world to add spice or whatever? Surely it's fine. If we're talking about a friend group, surely you know that's fine. If we're talking about randoms, then the thing he was talking about, being friends with them and wanting them to be happy, doesn't apply. Which one are we talking about at any given moment? I don't know. It flicks and flips.
An orc and, let's say, someone of the Jewish faith. It's a very fine line, and it's one that is incredibly complex and incredibly difficult, because you start going, well, what's the difference between an orc and, let's say, someone of the Jewish faith?
He better have an answer for this. If he doesn't have it, now that he's saying that, if he doesn't have an incredibly solid answer, I think he himself has made anti-Semitic statements. Bro, what the fuck?
Whoa. Now there's a line that's suddenly been crossed. So as game masters, we are treading this incredible space of
Bro, I think there's a really clear line between Jewish people and D&D orcs. I don't know. This is not a hard, thin line for me. There's a difference between fantasy Jewish people and real Jewish people as well. That's a finer line. Orcs and Jewish people? I don't know, bro.
either endorsing or we are not endorsing. We are entrenching our own values or we're not entrenching our own values. Where does the line stop and where does friendship then start? Because I know my
what is this fucking line?
Friendships around the table are far stronger when everyone is free to be whom they are rather than putting on a mask. So this is not going.
Bro, it would be really fucked up if you were playing D&D with an orc and you made a character who wants to genocide the orcs. That would be fucking weird. Okay, I can agree with you. It would be pretty fucking weird to play a role-playing game and you have a Jewish friend and then you have like a skinhead at the table who's like, yeah, my character wants to do another Holocaust. That would be very uncomfortable and not great. Equally, sure, if there's an orc at the table and they're like, destroy the poop elves, that would also be very uncomfortable. That would also be very uncomfortable. I'll agree with him. Don't have someone at your table who wants to roleplay an orc killer and abuser when you're playing with an orc. It would be not doing right by that friend.
Going to be a long video, hopefully, about this whole thing. And I'm not trying to tell you how to run your game. I am simply trying to impress upon you that sometimes allowing someone to be who they are can actually make a huge difference. And I speak now to two players that I had on two.
Our tables are powerful places for self-discovery. That's weird. I think that's weird to put on the people around you who you're playing with. That's fucking weird.
Two separate occasions. They didn't know each other. But they were good friends of mine. I thought I was a good friend of theirs. But there was something that I didn't know and that only came through in role-playing. And one day, this one friend of mine, who was sitting at the table,
what if they want to roleplay a very racially specific... What if they want to roleplay as a gay person who's like, man, that race is disgusting, I would never fuck them? Would you tell them to go? Or would it being their sexuality override the go away for bigotry rule? Ooh, that would be a nice hypothetical. If you told it out more effectively.
Turned to me and he said, would it be a problem if he arrived in the next gaming session wearing a woman's blouse? And I went, I don't care what you come in, as long as you arrive on time and, you know, don't bring sticky snacks and put them all over the miniatures and you've prepared your character backstory and. It, for me, was a no-brainer. I don't care. As long as, I mean, you can sit there naked for all I care, as long as you're not doing anything obscene or disruptive to the game. Do what you like. Let's be open and honest. So he arrived in a blouse. And this lasted for a few weeks, and then suddenly he arrived in full woman's clothing. And I went, great. Have you prepared your character sheet? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done that? Yes, they had. Sit down and let's play. What I didn't know, and I only discovered this much, much later, once this player had gone from being male to being female and having an
that didn't happen anyway.
Amazing life whilst doing so, was that in being free to come to these sessions however they wanted to dress, she was welcome. And none of...
And what impact does that have on the game? He's gone back to talking about personal groups. He's gone back to talking about friend groups. The D&D part is fucking irrelevant. It's friends who are chill with you and are like, you do you, bro, or sis.
None of us were going to give a damn about what she was doing. We were interested in what her character was doing. So in not caring about the person, we actually cared about the person, which again is just, it's crazy and it's insane and it is.
This point makes sense, but and this was his point about his role-playing group. You go to do something and people care so much about the thing you're doing that they don't give a shit about your personal stuff. Makes you feel more comfortable. Yeah, that's a thing. Doesn't matter how inclusive the game itself is, though, does it? If everyone's super focused on it, on the event. I mean, that's a classic social anxiety thing, even generic social anxiety. You get a hobby, you go to meet people who are into the hobby, and you don't have to feel so self-conscious because you know they're totally focused on whatever the hobby is. I don't think this matters at all for the inclusivity or care within the game itself. I don't think that matters at all. It's about the people and your relationship with them. And that would exist regardless of what you're getting together to do.
It is what it is. We are human beings. We are contradictions. We accept certain things and we refute certain things. We fight over certain things and we allow other things to happen. I think the bottom line is my experience when it comes to things like pride marches, when it comes to celebrating certain months and saying it's this month or it's that month or it's et cetera, is to not fight it and say, why, where is White Pride Month, or where is this or where is that?
That's a good fucking clip. Anyway.
Turn it political, but to realize that it is simply about allowing everybody to be who they are and who they want to be, and to not cast any kind of judgment upon them unless they are hurting others, and that's the big thing for me, is to simply say, well, you are who you are and I love you for you.
Sure, but the game though, we're talking about being inclusive in your RPGs. The game though, this is a whole different thing.
Now sit down and play our damn game and be free to be you in our game, because it's a fantasy space. And if you can't be yourself in fantasy, how could you possibly be yourself in reality?
If you can't be yourself in fantasy, how could you be yourself in reality? What if you feel weird about role-playing as something that's like you? I feel like if I was myself in a game of D&D, that would be cringe and shit. Does that mean I can't be myself in real life? No, that's a horrible fucking quote. If you can't be yourself in fantasy, how can you be yourself in reality? That's something where on a surface level, a lot of people are gonna go, wow, so true. But if you think about it and what actually happens in a game, in a role-playing game, oh, that doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Also, no matter how many games of D&D you shit up with your diaper fur fetish, you will never be a wolf girl. I'm sorry.
We go to fantasy supposedly because that's where we are free to be whatever we want.
No. I go to fantasy to make up cool things. To be what I want, I cut my calorie intake. I make sure to exercise. I make sure what I'm eating is going to provide me enough nutrients. I mean, when I was 6... my friends and I would pretend to be Dragon Ball Z characters, and we thought it would be the coolest thing in the world to be them. But then I, grew up. See, to me, it's about creating a story together. It's a story generator. So, the DM contributes the most. Your role as a player, assuming you're going for something where there's going to be story. I mean, Wargame Tabletops is its own thing. You're going to crunch numbers. But, if we're doing D&D and we're going to have roleplay and stuff, I want to contribute something interesting and enjoyable for the other people. My character is for the other people. There's going to be me in it because I'm going to be picking something that I think is interesting and cool, and other people will find interesting and cool. But it's it's a similar mindset to being a DM, I guess, except you're a single character controller, but more in depth in that single character. Yeah, exactly, Rev. Exactly. Like RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress generates stories, except it's each main character is controlled by a single person, which leads to more unknown coming out of it, and more personal impact. I don't know, weird.
So we should allow people to do that, I think, anyway.
It's not about disallowing people from doing it. No one's gonna fucking swoop down into your game and say, you can't do that. But if you're at a table where people are like, I don't want a wolf person, I don't like this is cringe, or it doesn't fit into the world that I think is good, it gives it a flavor I don't want, or anything like that. Or if you're like, I've dealt with furries before, it's not going to stop here. That's not the same as saying you're not allowed to do it.
Because I know that when my group allowed me to be whom I wanted to be, it was incredibly liberating, and it was as if the world was suddenly no longer just this dark.
Like if there was like a D&D event or something, and I went to a table, I met the people and they're nice or whatever, and it was like, okay, so what kind of character do you have in mind? Or I brought a character because they said to pick a character, and it turned out this was a friend group of a bunch of furries, and they're all anthropomorphic animals, and there's very clearly some fetishistic overtone. And they were like, nah, you really need to be some sort of animal person. That's not the game for me. I wouldn't campaign to be able to be a human, for example, or some other humanoid. It's not the game for me. Sorry, guys. You all seem nice. This one isn't for me.
Space that hated me for things that I had no control over. I'm not entirely sure what the point of this video was, and it was definitely inspired by the fact that you see gay pride everywhere, you see the flags up and running, you see the acerbic commentary about corporations just trying to capitalize on gay pride and turn it into a money-making event. Obviously, that's what humans are going to do. We'll make money out of anything, literally, right? That's not the point. The point is, you might have some friends, or you might be someone who has something about yourself that you don't like, or that you are hiding, that if you had the right role-playing group, or if you have the right table, can come out into the light. And that will...
Guys, there's something very important I've got to put into my character. How to Be a Great GM told me that really in role-playing, it's where you need to be able to be yourself. And you know, air your insecurities. So this isn't a sexual thing. It's just, I need you all to know that my character has a 2-inch penis. I need you to know this, and I need you to be okay with this, okay?
Cause you to have a much better life. And if that isn't worth fighting for, if that isn't worth talking about, then I don't know what is. Anyway, that's this week's video. Hit the like button if you like the video, if you share my sentiment. Hit the subscribe button if you want to support the channel. And of course, that goblin bell will alert you to when things are coming up. Now,
what's the difference between a goblin bell and a person of the Jewish faith bell? Fucking bigot.
A lot of people are going to say, we shouldn't be talking about this in role-playing. There is no room for this in role-playing. And there'll be lots of people who say, this is exactly what we should be talking about. It's a polarizing space, and I
don't think so. I don't think it's that polarizing. If it's appropriate amongst that group, yes. If it's not, no. That's it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it won't. Da-da!